Okay, good morning, everybody. Greetings and salutations. How are we doing today? It's Larsen Live, January 25th. TikTok is dead. Long live TikTok. As we all remember, at least in theory, because I don't have TikTok, TikTok was banned as quote unquote Tchaikovsky spyware, then was brought back within 48 hours. It was probably a massive publicity stunt by President Donald Trump. At least I assume so. Anyway, that ties into the name of the stream. Of course, the king is dead, long live the king, and also the music. At first, I was going to perhaps use the song TikTok, but it sucks. And then I was going to download some song that has something to do with The King is Dead, Long Live the King. There is, in fact, a song called The King is Dead, Long Live the King by Brad Pitt, but it may legitimately be one of the worst songs I've ever heard. If I don't know how you could musically convey the concept of being thrown down a flight of stairs, but somehow that song does it. It's just the most janky, unrhythmic percussion you've ever heard. Just it sucks. Then I decided to maybe look up a song from a TikTok, but has there ever been a good song published on TikTok? Very rarely. There's a couple which I might play at some point if they're ever relevant to the stream that my wife shows me. I, of course, do not use the TikToks. I'm a surly, middle-aged man. So finally, I decided to choose the Solemn March by Pyotr Tchaikovsky. I probably pronounced his name wrong. Yes, Tchaikovsky's Solemn March, which he wrote for the coronation of Tsar Alexander III back in the 1860s. A somewhat more literal, but also somewhat more whimsical interpretation of the phrase, "The king is dead, long live the king." Alexander III, of course, being the semi-abusive father of the last Romanov Tsar, Nicholas II. Alexander III also being a gigantic bald man who liked to bend fire pokers for the fun of it. Which is a pretty good idea. I mean, if I, hypothetically in the future, if I have children and the kids are acting up, I might have to just bend some, cold rolled steel to get them to shut up. It might work. Ponythroat asks, is the song "The King is Dead, Long Live the King" by Brad Pitt a Zoomer version of My Pal Foot Foot? Well, it didn't have lyrics, so no, not exactly. But in terms of musical composition and skill, it was pretty close to the Shags. My pal's name is Foot 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 Foot. The Shags did become barely competent musicians later in life, which made them a lot less interesting. 1 second. You okay, baby?
You sneezed really hard and now my nose is a little.
As my wife sneezed behind me, my apologies. Yeah, we got some good comments going on. Ponythroat asks, is this music to make the brappies leave the stream? In a manner of speaking, yes. Babe Slankovich says his students were dancing to TikTok yesterday and it beats studying, so I guess it's okay. Yes, my students are gadding about the TikToks in my class as well. Bear in mind that my students... okay, so this is what happened in class yesterday. We have a state exam on Monday. I decided to be nice and do a review game on Friday so they could be prepared. The game was a game played in which you divide into 3 teams. I assume you all understand the concept of, you pointed people and then they call out numbers 1, 2, and 3 and then get into the teams. Apparently this is too difficult for my students because I had to spend about 20 minutes just getting them into teams. And then they still failed to get into groups. They just became this sort of amorphous blob in the middle of the room. The kids don't understand the concept of counting to 3. This is not good. Ponythroat says, I should keep a sack of wrenches in the desk in case they start watching TikToks. I would if I could. Patches O'Houlihan is one of the greatest mentors this country has ever produced. Biff Slankovich says, some of my students are dreamers and they don't want to go back to Honduras. So what are they going to do once the stay is lifted by the great Supreme Court? I mean, yeah, we have a lot to say about the Trump administration. I mean, I don't know. There's something I find very distasteful about people who just kind of come in here to drop a baby off and be like, derp, I'm a citizen now. I mean, it seems a bit, shall I say, exploitative. I mean, the birthright citizenship thing was, done in the past to give blacks and Native Americans citizenship, which is fair. But this is something I've always found very distasteful about, a woman being 8 months pregnant just waltzes over to America and drops her kid off and just, oops, I'm a citizen now. Almost as if people see America as just an economic zone to be exploited at will. Dare I say, there's many things I find distasteful about the Trump-Vance administration, but they, at the very least, seem to see America as, a country and not a public good that everybody can just take from at will. And I must say, I do like that. I don't care for the douchey way they go about doing things, but we can't have everything. Alpha Marigi says, Trump should trade the organs of all American citizens who downloaded Xiao Hong Su for ownership of TikTok. I mean, they have a right to use whatever stupid Chi-Com apps you want to use. Bislankovich says, the kids can remember 60,000 dance moves, nothing about the industrial age which they're studying. I mean, I'd be slightly more impressed if the dance moves were actually, good. They're not. Biff Slankovich says, the national anthem, YMCA. Yes. I mean, Trump will never stop being a boomer. Anyway, yes, Trump has been passing many executive orders. Some of them are not good, but I must say, it is kind of nice to see a president who actually, does things. Maybe they're not the best things to do. But it's nice to see a president who doesn't, sit around waiting for 10,000, subcommittees and executive orders to accomplish anything. But, yeah, we have quite a lot to say about the first 100 days of the Trump administration. First of all, Trump has confirmed that Vivek Ramaswamy is out. He is out of the DOGE committee, the Department of Government Efficiency. Dare I say, getting onto your podium and basically saying, you Americans are, dumb pig fucks and, we're better than you and you deserve to be replaced, didn't really go over well. It's amazing how that didn't happen. It's amazing how that people didn't like that. Surprise. Okay. Yes, there is an app where you can basically just get asylum, whenever you want. And on day one of the Trump administration, 30,000 people just had their appointments taken away. Many videos went viral of people on the Mexican border crying and being hysterical. I mean, again, there's something I find very distasteful about an app being made to give these people asylum. And let's not get into the fact that the Mexican government literally gives pamphlets on how to, sneak across the border and lie to police officers. But never mind that. I, of course, have nothing against people from Mexico or people from any place. I wish that all people could be prosperous and happy in their homelands. But, the fact remains that America is far from perfect, but it is a nation. It's not a public good. And a lot of people seem to be under the impression that it is a public good. Out of one side of the mouth, they'll tell us about how evil and stupid we are, but then they'll, the second you inconvenience them, it's all, a blue, 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 poor and huddled masses, etc., etc., etc. I say let's call their bluff. If you hate us so much, fine, we'll stop, doing foreign aid and all that. I want nothing more than America to not be involved in all these military conflicts around the world. I say we give the people what they want. Alf Marigi says it's very hypocritical to demand boycotts of McDonald's, Starbucks, and Disney because of the Palestinians. They not only refuse to give up TikTok for the Uyghurs, also deny the camps. Yes, Chinese social media apps aren't great. You'll be instantly banned if you mention anything about Tiananmen Square or Tibet or Xinjiang or even LGBT content. They will throw your ass off. Ponythroat says, I was talking to somebody born in 2002. I had to explain what pneumatic tube messaging and bakelite plastic are. These kids today, man. Years and years ago, before I met my wife, I went on a date with a young lady. I was like 26, she was 18, and I briefly mentioned to her my old car, my first car, it was so old it had a tape deck. She had no idea whatsoever what tapes were. Boy, that made me feel old. Biff Stankovic says we got 218 votes in the House, 75 votes in the Senate for the conviction and elimination of Donald Trump as president. Yahoo. We'll see what happens. But there are certainly things I dislike about what's going on with the Trump administration. So, Trump's nominee to head the USDA is a Mrs. Brooke Rollins. She is very deeply invested in the pork industry. More specifically, she tells Congress that she will force states to allow the sale of pork from crated pigs. Crated pigs are, of course, pigs that are literally kept in crates or they're not allowed to move. Several states have already banned these, factory farmed pigs from being sold. Or the meat, I should say, from being sold. As they should. She's going to force it in. She's going to force the states to allow the sale of pork from crated pigs. I mean, in theory, I guess you should have the right to, buy whatever horrible torture meat you want. But just label it in big, bold letters what's going on here. Label the organic as the organic. Label the disgusting factory meat as disgusting factory meat. I will say that during the Trump campaign, something I did like that he was talking about was, all that stuff with RFK Jr. about how, the food sucks. There's all these additives in the food. The people aren't healthy because of it. And yeah, I agree with all that 100%. But then he does shit like this. And dare I say, perhaps all that rhetoric was just empty rhetoric. Of course, people will probably go for, lowering the food price instead of, having better tasting, healthier meat that's not raised from, caged prison animals. Yeah, fuck Brooke Rollins. Fuck anybody who factory farms. Oh boy, cheap meat. No, sir, I don't like it. Yeah, I'm sorry, but I buy organic all the time. And if the poors want to eat meat, yeah, see, this is where you should be eating the zebugs. Oh, and fun fact, almost 30% of all antibiotics produced in America are used in cows and pigs to keep them alive in the horrid conditions they live in. So yes, hate to say it, the Zippors eat the bugs, eat the rice and beans. I don't eat cheap meat because it gives me the wind terrible. Alpha Marigi says, hopefully she learned about tapes from Guardians of the Galaxy. And this is years before Guardians of the Galaxy came out, so I'm going to assume she did. Rodriguez says RFK will body slam her. Well, I certainly hope so. Pony Throat says, did you explain the difference between 8-track and cassette in exhaustive detail? That really makes the chick swoon. Well, I mean, my old car had a cassette tape, not an 8-track deck. I know, it's funny how, like, people have brought back vinyl records, but nobody's really bringing back tapes. Although I do know that they did bring back, Peter Quill's awesome mix on tape for Guardians of the Galaxy. Alpha Marigues says, I was talking about why people should buy grass-fed beef. My friends just pretend they didn't hear me. I mean, I've seen factory farms firsthand. It's not great. I would ban that shit right now, to be honest. You see, I'm not a bad guy. I have compassion for the animals. I mean, my political action is not merely just, grab a lead pipe in the Streets of Rage OST and just beat the crap out of derelicts on the street. I mean, that's part of it, but, I also support organic food and such. Also in the news about the Trump regime. Pretty big deal, of course. Again, something that he did do that I actually do like is that John Bolton, the mustachioed chicken hawk warmongering son of a bitch, he no longer has security clearance. And I quote from the Trump administration, to remedy the abuses of the public trust, this executive order directs the revocation of any active or current security clearances held by 1. Former intelligence officials who engaged in misleading and inappropriate political coordination with the Biden campaign, and 2. John Bolton. I love how the first one was literally, just vague, anonymous people, and then the second was just, fuck John Bolton. Again, I like that. John Bolton should not be allowed anywhere near national security. John Bolton should not be allowed to manage a goddamn lemonade stand, to be quite honest. John Bolton's one of those guys who I would just go into like a spastic cock-punching fury if I ever met him in person. Speaking of the military, I believe Trump has also signed an executive order in which he says he's going to pull out 20,000 soldiers from European bases. That's good. I mean, you could still do a few 100,000 more, and we shouldn't have any bases anywhere. But that's neither here or there. It's a start. So, there's a lot I don't like about Trump, but some of the things he's doing I do like. I'm not going to lie. I mean, there's several other people I think should not be allowed anywhere near the government. But John Bolton is a very good start. Alfreda says based. Yes, it is. Shinseki Evans says Bolton lost his Secret Service protection too. Again, John Bolton should, not be allowed anywhere near any level of political organization higher than that of a McDonald's. Or he can go manage a Chipotle, as we've been told, that's how you make money nowadays. See what else we got here. I think I have a few more things to say about the political goings-on. Let's see what I got. Oh, yeah, I guess I should talk about the alleged Roman salute that Elon Musk threw up at the inauguration. I really don't think it was. I think Elon Musk is just a spastic, gormless autist who doesn't have good body language. I don't has Elon Musk ever said anything like anti-Semitic or Nazi-ish in his life? I don't know. Anyway, people were saying like, "Oh, I'm not done." I'm sorry. People were saying, "I'm done investing in Tesla. I'm done with SpaceX. I refuse to allow, Nazis to send people into space." Oh boy, I have some history to tell you, sir. Alfreda says, "My heart goes out to you." Yes, there are many issues with Elon Musk, but I don't think Nazism is one of them. And finally, with regards to Trump's political rise, from CBN.com, witches report that their spells against Trump are not working. The coven says he has a shield. I'm going to repeat that again. A group of witches, doing what they do usually, which is gadding about the trees, singing about their vaginas. They tried to cast, binding spells and things on Trump. It didn't work. Your powers are useless against me. The fact that he's laying a smackdown upon these, cluster B women without doing anything, that does amuse me. Remember, kids, witchy chicks are weird, not in the good way. Avoid. Alpha Rodriguez says Reddit mods banned X links. He also says Shinzo Abe, Peanut, and Fred are protecting him. Who the hell's Fred? I know Shinzo Abe is, of course, the assassinated Prime Minister of Japan. Peanut is that squirrel. Who the hell's Fred? Is there some Fred that I missed? Let's see. Well, I'm sure somebody will remind me who Fred is. Ponythroat says it's Fred, that washed up YouTuber. No, not Lucas Cruikshank, sir. Oh, Fred is that pet raccoon, right? I remember now. Ponythroat says Werner von Braun intensifies. He described female astronauts as reserved 150 pounds of payload for reactional equipment. What a delightful scamp. Miss Linkovich says, now we have a drunk womanizer with fingers on the nuclear codes that make everybody feel really secure. We should all have security clearance for him. I mean, to be fair, he was hardly the first drunken womanizer to have his finger on the nuclear codes in this country. Well, I mean, actually, I don't know if Bill Clinton ever drank to excess, but he certainly did screw around with the broads. Okay, so, quite a lot of goings on in America. It's bumptious and chaotic and strange, but maybe some good will come out of it. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt for now. The fact that he showed John Bolton the door is a sign of promise to me. But I digress. Anyway, going to Old Blighty, Prime Minister Keir Starmer of the UK announces new terrorism legislation. It is aimed at targeting, drumroll please, the incel menace. Yeah, because there's no other terrorism going on in Europe. It's the incels. The incels are the problem here. I should point out that not too long ago, a Rwandan gentleman walked into a dance studio and stabbed a bunch of little girls, which is a pretty big story going on in the UK now, but the real problem here is just a bunch of lonely, shit posters go on 4chan. Boy, it's great when, the head of your government actively hates you and everybody you care about. Again, Trump is a colossal douchebag, but he doesn't seem to he doesn't seem to have naked contempt for, the average American person, which I feel like is a lot of the reason why people voted for him. Could it be, in fact, that, disaffected young men whacking off and posting on 4chan might be a bigger threat to the government than, violent, brat braps? The answer is yes. Ponythroat says, can you look at the UK stabbing guy? Axel, it's like Rubu Kabubu or something like that. Rubicon or something like that. Look at that UK stabbing guy and tell me that the Kazan from Voyager are not the real threat. I'm going to have to look up the Kazan. Yep, that's him. Hey. Alf Rodriguez says, the virginity rate in America for men under 30 is 30. Incels are just normal dudes who can't close. I criticize incels immensely. Like, I pity them. And I feel like they should be taught, social skills. And given a good hard, verbal, emotional slap to the face to get them to cut it out. But marking them as terrorists and, demonizing them, that's not really the way to go here. Alf Rodriguez says, wait, that stat was for men who never had a girlfriend. I got the gist. So, the UK is not doing great. Neither is the US. And, speaking of countries that aren't doing great, rumors abound in my country-in-law, South Africa, that land is basically going to be reappropriated by the government. Cyril Ramaphosa legalizes expropriation without compensation.
It's
Ramaphosa. Ramalama ding dong.
Ramaphosa.
It's Poe, not Foe.
It's Poe.
Okay. President that guy.
Just say Uncle Cyril. That's what everyone calls him.
Uncle Cyril signs the Expropriation Act into law, legalizing expropriation without compensation, a major turning point for property rights in the Republic of South Africa. Okay, there was a 1975 Expropriation Act which ensured that landowners would get paid equal amounts when the state took property for public use. Okay, he's taking this for public interest. What does public interest mean? Land reform and correcting historical injustice without compensation. People are saying this is exactly what Mugabe did in Zimbabwe. Yes, market value is no longer the main factor of what you get paid for your land, if any at all. Fair compensation is determined by history of acquisition, current use, and socioeconomic factors. Some interpret it as if the government thinks that you have benefited from history, you get nothing like it, sir. Yeah, it's not great. I can't really judge too much because I guarantee you in the next 50 years, if that, they're going to be doing the same thing in America, or at least proposing it in Congress. This tends to happen a lot in post-colonial African countries. Remember in Uganda when Idi Amin just took everybody's property, then all the white people and Indian people left, and they were just standing there holding their dicks in their hands? I don't know why I brought that up. Ponythroat says 30% of men under 30 are virgins. Looks like the job of the superhero known as your mother. Well, actually, as we'll talk about, I guess we could talk about it in the next story. During the war in Ukraine, Vladimir Putin's apparently raising like a division of angry Chuds, but we'll get to that in a little bit. Pony Throat says Larsen's wife's decision to move to America getting more justified every day. I mean, she's certainly not shy about criticizing this country either, but she says, laughing behind me. But hey, I do it too. Pony Throat says, sounds more like taking Boer land and using it for public use, giving it to my rich friends. Yeah, probably. Again, I can't really judge or mock because this is literally, I guarantee you, in the next 100 years, if that, they're going to be doing this exact same thing in America. Shit sucks, yo. Oh yeah, let's speaking of, let's talk about the first Chud division of the Russian army. I am speaking somewhat tongue-in-cheek because these are essentially what's going on here is the Russian equivalent of the ROTC. They're not actual conscripts or real soldiers. However, they are astoundingly chudly. At Real Wow Mao says Putin unleashes the world's first Chud division. Let me just open this up. Yeah, they rearranged all the little buttons and things on Streamlabs, so it took me a little longer to find the thing to upload an image. Okay, let's see what we got. Did I not save the... 1 second. Why is it not showing up? Hopefully this will do it. Yes, here we go. Like the first Chud infantry. I know this. I know these are high school kids. I know this is, you know, whatever the Russian version of the ROTC is. But yeah, this is this ain't great. And then again, to be fair, I mean, I'd be pretty afraid if a bunch of, you know, angry, sexless chuds were like running at me with guns. Oh wait, what am I saying? That is a threat in America, actually. Okay. Ponythroat says, wait, what is going on with the viewers? I had like 10 and now it's down to 6. And then went back to 8. I don't know what the hell's going on here. Also, why does every like Soviet commander have like 30,000 medals? I mean, you could criticize the modern day American military for doing the same, but at least in the past, we're a little bit more reserved with this, as we should be. Ponythroat says, whoever wins, the Chuds lose. The Chuds lost. The Chuds will always lose. Yes, thank you, Mr. Lebowski. And to be fair, I mean, the Russian Federation could literally have a Chud division, because the Chuds are a somewhat discriminated against minority of Finnish people that live in Russia. A long history of chudding. Oh, anyway, some positive news in New York City. For the first time in 30 years, in the past week, there were 0 shootings or shooting victims reported in New York City. So, at least a little bit of progress is being made. You round up brappies and illegal immigrants, and the crime rate goes down. What a shock. So yeah, it's not much to say about that. It's just a nice bit of news. Let's see. Okay, is it time to get to the pop culture side of things? Yes, I believe it is. Okay, first of all, there's apparently a new reboot of Flash Gordon, and it looks like hot garbage. Why does it look like hot garbage? Well, take a look for yourself, I say as I pull this up. Okay. Give me a second here as I pull up this Flash Gordon. More like Gash Gordon, as you'll see in a second. Ponythroat says, I don't know anything about the Finnish Chuds, but being called Chuds means discrimination against them is probably justified. Cannibalistic humanoid underground dweller division when? Well, as long as it's not Bud the Chud. Shinseki Evans says, diverse. Yes, it is diverse. Yeah, Flash Gordon is now apparently a surly lesbian built like a refrigerator. Who was asking for this? Who is this sexless man woman who's, clinging on to Femme Gordon? It's not Dale, is it? It sucks. First of all, why does every goddamn thing nowadays have this exact, Tumblr art style? Secondly, who is asking for this? Thirdly, what is this, the fourth time they tried to reboot Flash Gordon to little success? Obviously we have the movie in 80, which was a goddamn masterpiece, and then there was a 90s cartoon, there's a 2007 sci-fi show, and now there's this crap. This art style is atrocious. How the hell is it that, Alex Raymond, or whoever he was, in the 30s, was drawing much better than this? The dude was literally, drawing on pieces of wood pulp paper with, a pencil, and he was cleaning the clock of this garbage. You could literally just reprint the old 1930s Flash Gordon. I bet the kids would go for that more than, this horseshit now. Flash Gordon is supposed to be a, stuffy, Yale waspy polo player, and by God, that's how I like it. Bill Slinkovich says, Dave Chappelle said California land's what everybody likes, but he could give you 50,000 acres in Mississippi. He would get 5,000 total. Yes. It's astounding how badly they've ruined California. California is literally the fields of Elysium. It is literally the land of eternal spring. And you blew it. That is honestly impressive. Ponythroat says, does the new Flash Gordon have a Queen soundtrack? Probably not. Something that's big with, the chicklet nowadays is they have, playlists that you're supposed to listen to as you read. I don't even know what kind of music surly lesbian Flash Gordon would even have. What sort of music does a surly lesbian who likes pulp science fiction listen to? That's a trick question because no surly lesbian likes pulp fiction. Bill Slankovich says, Dave Chappelle said that he lives next to Springfield, Ohio, and he went over to see if they were eating the dogs and cats, and he said, no, that's a lie. They're not eating the dogs or cats, but they were eating the pigeons, as we discussed last week. One second. My wife whistled to me and had to go look at the dog wearing a sweater. Yes, that is quite a nice sweater dog. Somebody in the thread about the new Flash Gordon posted. I don't know if this is like an official thing, but it's better. It's like a femme Flash Gordon with like a giant, heaving yabos, and like she's got like the, Victory Roll 1950s haircut, and yeah, that would be tolerable, I suppose. There's some Japanese subtitles to it. I don't know if this is an actual product or just an AI thing. But yeah, it's like basically Flash Gordon crossed with Zero Suit Samus from Metroid. It's better than this. Okay, let's see. Let's read more about this. Flash Gordon, The Girl from Infinity, by Marguerite Bennett and Bev Johnson. Okay, this is published by Paper Cuts with a Z. Okay, so there's apparently an actual new Flash Gordon that's done properly, which is done by Paper Cuts, and it's done by Dan Shakady, who also does the new Dick Tracy, and those are apparently pretty good. I might have to check those out. But yes, yeah, Marguerite Bennett and Bev Johnson. Not great. Let's read the back of this book, shall we? Oh, and somebody already took my joke about Gash Gordon. Great minds think alike. Anyway. Okay, in the distant future, Voyager Dale Arden, discovers a shooting star containing a girl named Flash, savior of the universe. Flash has no memory of who she is, and together they must uncover her past, save Dale's family, rescue the planet of Omnia, not Mongo, from the clutches of the cruel Emperor Azimuth, not Ming the Merciless. One second. What?
Just breathe through it. It's gonna be okay.
Thank you, Daphne. My wife encourages me to breathe through it. Join the adventure of a lifetime. I doubt that very much. In this gorgeous, I doubt that very much, reimagining of Flash Gordon, written by New York Times bestseller Marguerite Bennett and illustrated by Bev Johnson. Okay, so Marguerite Bennett is what has she written? Apparently, she wrote. This is just a quote: "The worst arc in the history of the Power Rangers comics." I have never read that. I barely ever watched the show even, so I couldn't tell you about that. So, I don't know, there's something I really can't. I can't imagine any woman ever calling herself Flash. That seems like a very masculine nickname. And also, let's look at what Bev Johnson does. She's not a bad artist per se. I mean, she draws very cute, kind of cutesy style, which does not at all fit the swaggering like pulp action ethos of Flash Gordon. Yeah, she's not a bad artist. She's just totally not the person to be doing this. And honestly, if the story's not about a blonde wasp polo player kicking the shit out of Space Chinaman, is it really Flash Gordon at all? The answer is no. Alpha Marigi asks, or says, there was a giant lake that was diverted from California into the ocean before I was born. Well, I mean, it could be worse. They could literally create a lake by destroying a mountain chain like Hetch Hetchy. John Muir was very upset about this. Pointythroat says, at least she doesn't look like live-action Lord Farquaad like the new Snow White. My wife laughs, and see, you don't hate everything Ponythroat says. Yes, you have a new fan, Ponythroat. Congratulations. Okay, yeah, so apparently there is a new Flash Gordon by Mad Cave. It's, actually looks decent. But, yeah, it ain't this. This ain't it, bro. And yes, I know that Flash Gordon is now... he sort of became a football player, not a polo player, since nobody really plays polo anymore. I'm curious as to what Femme Gordon played in college. Like, I bet she was on the golf team, if you know what I mean. But yeah, it's I will not be engaging in this. So just to clarify, the first thing I see on Bev Johnson's portfolio is a sort of warm and fluffy cartoon depiction of the characters from The Book Thief, Hans and Rosa and Liesel. Yeah, clearly this is who we want to be illustrating Flash Gordon. For the love of God, like was Jim Lee or Frank Miller not available? Like I'm pretty sure you could go to the cemetery and dig up Jack Kirby's desiccated corpse and he could draw better than this. My God. Okay, what else is going on? Let's see. Okay, in video game news, Rockstar says that they're thinking about pricing Grand Theft Auto 6, soon to come out, at $100. Yeah, games industry analyst claims that game companies hope it'll cost $80 to $100. A price hike is needed for market growth. Companies are hoping it will start the trend of all games being more expensive. How about no? And $50 is enough. Not. You know what's going to happen if Grand Theft Auto 6 costs $100? I think I'll go break out my copy of GTA 3 from 20 years ago, and I'll play that again instead. Fuck you, sir. Boy, it's a mystery why there's been this massive rush towards retro and independent gaming. I don't understand why that's happening. It's a mystery. I will not, in fact, I wasn't really planning on buying GTA 6 anyways, since I don't have a PS5. They're also talking about, like, the new PS6, which is funny because the PS5 was a complete shit show that nobody liked to begin with. So, this generation sucked. Let's hope the next one's going to be better. And now how we're going to do that? Microtransactions and senseless price gouging. I've said this many times. I certainly have my problems with Nintendo's, business model, but they're not doing this at least. So, kind of by default, they're the best. Now, if they could just make a statement about certain things we're not going to get into, that'll be great. Pony Throat says a couple of things. Frank Miller wouldn't help. He forgot how to draw in like 2003. Yes, but he'd still be better than Bev Johnson. To reiterate, Jack Kirby or Steve Ditko's corpses would be better than Bev Johnson for this sort of comic. Pony Throat says if it costs $100, it'll be slightly cheaper adjusted for inflation as the average NES game was. I mean, to be fair, the money was actually real to some extent in the 80s. I don't know, I really think we're starting to see, declining returns on video games. Because, there's only so many polygons you can put into a game model, and, I'll be honest, I played PS3, those graphics still look great to me. I don't really see that much of a difference in graphical quality between, PS3, 4, and 5. I really don't. Maybe I'm just old and I don't see, I don't see it anymore. But in a lot of cases, the graphics of, the best games in PS3 look just as good as the games they're coming out with now. And, they're actual games instead of, Skinner boxes that are designed to rot children's brains. And I know it's kind of funny, saying that the new games are, rotting the games, not the old games, but it really is the case. I mean, the games in the past, they didn't have, the best stories, but they had a story. Now they don't. They don't even have that. The game industry sucks. And, I don't think I'm going to be buying new games for a long time. I mean, there's plenty of old games I can rediscover and have fun with for pretty much the next foreseeable decades of my life. And, of course, I got the connections with the retro games, which is, say, a guy who has a little hole in the wall that I buy from. And that's good. Ponythroat says, yeah, I played Bioshock 2 yesterday, from 15 years ago. It wasn't really that much different from modern games. Games from the last 10 years are really different in terms of graphics. Yeah, I mean, it's diminishing returns. There's only so many, polygons you can put into a character model, and eventually it's going to not really be noticeable. So I say, gasp, you should start focusing on, the gameplay and, interactivity instead of, just endlessly pumping up the graphics. Yeah, Nintendo's coming out with that Switch 2, and people are like, oh, this looks like PS4 graphics. So it looks pretty much identical to the games they have nowadays, except it's not going to be, causing you to go bankrupt. Okay, cool. And, there's about 4 games on the Switch that I would want to play, but that's 4 more than other consoles. Alpha Marie says, I got my GameCube repaired from a retro gaming shop. I actually sold my GameCube because I have the Wii, and I can just, it's backwards compatible. Unfortunately, my PS3 is not backwards compatible, which was a bit of a problem for me when I bought a copy of God Hand, and I couldn't play it. Ponythroat says, physics as a concept in games were unjustly abandoned in 2007. They don't even have ragdolls anymore. I mean, there's a lot of games that, that perfected certain mechanics, and honestly, you could just soup up graphics and I'd be happy. Why does the WWE, why do they still make video games that are, with new engines and stuff? You perfected the wrestling game engine with WWF No Mercy in 2001. Just make that game, soup up the graphics, put in the new guys, and there you go. People will buy that. Those new ones they have suck. Now, basically, if we could just get, like, the modern technology of games combined with, like, the attitude and ethos of 90s games, then we'd be styling. Ponythor says, the Wii can't even use the GameCube's GBA link cable thing. Ah, yes, that thing that was literally only used for, like, 2 games. How will we ever live without that? I'm serious. Like, seriously, what games did they even use that stupid thing for? I know there was, like, Zelda 4 Swords, which I never actually played. And, there was, like, a Final Fantasy game that used that, I think. And that's literally it. I never got around to playing 4 Swords. Like, I had the Game Boy Advance port of Link to the Past, which I could have linked up, but I didn't have any friends that, had the game. Or it's just a joke. I didn't have any friends to begin with. Kidding. I did actually have a friend in. When did that come out? It was like I was in 6th grade. So yeah, I had some friends who, had the game. We just never linked up for whatever reason. Okay. Alpha Rodriguez says, speaking of games, have you heard of the Real Game Awards? No, I've not. What the hell is the Real Game Awards? Is that some kind of like board game award show or something? Ponythroat says, I think a bunch of Pokemon games use that connectivity thing. I see. And no, I know there's a difference between the Game Boy Player and the GBA to GameCube adapter. I know about like the Super Game Boy, which you could plug into your Super Nintendo and play on the TV. When I was a little kid, like, my friend had one of those. Yeah, the only thing I remember about that connector thing for the GameCube was that the VG Cats comic strip made a comic making fun of that whole concept. Like, gee, Miyamoto, why can't we just ride in the one car? No, we have to link up these little cars to the big car and we all just ride together. Shut up. Yeah, I never understood it myself. Okay, but yeah, speaking of wrestling, the World Wrestling Entertainment Incorporated's longtime former headquarters, Titan Towers in Stamford, Connecticut, which I've driven past while visiting my family in Massachusetts, has been sold for $3.75 million to real estate firm MB Financial, with plans to turn the building into apartments. An era has passed. So says Brian Gewirtz, because I want to hear from this asshole. If you have the chance to live every day for the rest of your life in the same space that Dancing Tensai was conceived, you better take it. Says White Llama Poo Poo. On the flip side, if I had to stay in the same place that Vince McMahon did his stuff, I wouldn't take that chance. Well, I mean, to be honest, I would buy that apartment, then I'd build my sex dungeon in the place where Vince McMahon was, getting down. I mean, that's going to be a hell of a pitch for any real estate person who's selling an apartment. Yes, as you can see here, this apartment is where they conceived of Road Warrior Puke. This right here is where the writers came up with the idea where Mark Henry and Mae Young give birth to a giant fist. And here, of course, is where they had a first blood match on the roof. But seriously, they don't still call the place Titan Towers. I'm going to be very upset. Okay. Alpha Marigi says, the Real Game Awards is an award show made by Stuttering Craig. I see. What makes it different from the bullshit Game Awards they have on Spike? Other than the fact that the Game Awards, sponsored by Todd Phillips, manages to rope in Al Pacino to like talk about topics he clearly knows nothing about. Hey guys, we have this bullshit video game award show that nobody respects. How can we get some eyes on it? Let's bring in this 87-year-old man who knows nothing about video games to talk about a bunch of horseshit he's never seen before. Says, to be fair, Nintendo did push the Game Boy compatibility with the GameCube way too hard. Yeah, I mean, I never met anybody who had that stupid thing. It's like, yeah, I'm just going to play some more Super Smash Brothers. Alpha Marigi says, it's all based on fan voting. The catch is to prevent malicious actors and to gatekeep its paywall voting with $30. Doesn't seem different from a YouTuber Patreon or whatever. Pointy says, this is where Chris Benoit checked his text messages. Pointy says, I'm pretty sure Screw Attack is mostly lost media now. He wants to buy it back still, says Alpha Marigi. I remember Screw Attack. I used to watch like Angry Video Game Nerd and stuff on that. I remember Craig and Tom. I know Handsome Tom does like that show with Razor Fist sometimes. But I don't know. I've kind of checked out of the whole like game scene. You probably notice all my video game references are from like decades ago, which really makes me cool when I'm in class with the kids. Hey, to wrap things up, I have two wonderful stories of people simping really badly. Okay. At Cluffalo talks about some guy on OnlyFans. And I quote, I stopped donating on there when a long-term content provider I gave weekly donations to deactivated her profile without notice. I don't save pics because it's disrespectful, so I was more or less out $6,000. Reply, you paid $6,000 for porn? Why would you do that? The original poster, it's not porn. There's a certain intimacy to it which is impossible to achieve through anonymous browsing. This OnlyFans girl was like a girlfriend. She sent me notes. She would said my name in her premium specials, and I think she was kind of into me. The way she said my name was something more than just, a paycheck. I don't think so, sir. That might be the saddest thing I've ever seen. Except it would be, except for the thing I'm going to talk about in a second. You spend $6,000 on an OnlyFans girl, and you get a couple of pictures. For $6,000, you could have bought a really expensive prostitute and probably had a much better time for yourself. Or perhaps, it's a rough calculation here. Could have bought like 20 pretty good prostitutes and had an even better time. Okay, if any men here are listening, I'm sure you're all just, giant chinned giga chads. Do not give OnlyFans girls a penny, especially not $6,000. Shinseki Evans says, men are the ultimate victims of the sex industry, in my humble opinion. It's an industry that victimizes everybody. It's not great. Ponythroat says, at least the Findom community knows how little self-respect they deserve. Oh, they deserve none of the respect. I've been in some bad relationships, but I've never... I feel like if I was throwing money at something and I wasn't even getting a kiss for it, I'd probably, I'd snap out of it pretty damn quick. Alpha Marie says, Wokies were also pissed at AVGN for being on the Game Awards because Craig Dow was an anti-woke commentary. As if Craig wasn't one of James's oldest friends. Yeah. Give me 1 second. I'm going to go check that side-scroller channel to see if that's Craig or Tom. I don't remember which one's which. Okay, let's see what we got here. It's Craig, sorry. Oh boy, I've lost some cred with some of you. And finally, yes, Alpha Marigi and Shinseki Evan announced that it is Craig. And finally, a French woman was conned out of 830,000 euros, 700,000 British pounds, or 850 US dollars, by a group of scammers posing as Brad Pitt. She has faced a huge wave of mockery. French broadcaster TF1 had a program about her, but then they dropped it. You know, I thought it was bad that you gave up $6,000 to somebody you've never seen, but how the shit do you give up 830,000 euros to, you know, fake Brad Pitt? I don't even know where to begin with this idiocy. Why, yes, I do have to give thousands and thousands of euros to this famous movie star because he obviously couldn't afford to fly out to Paris. Like, common sense, woman. I mean, I'm not doubting that such a thing is possible. I mean, clearly Brad Pitt does not care much for marital fidelity, but you really should have put two and two together that, like, he should have been more than capable of flying to Paris on his own. I don't know where this woman lives. I don't even know if she lives in Paris. Maybe she lives in, like, you know, Lyon or something. I don't know. Anyway, I feel like men kind of just innately have this sense of, like, when they're being scammed. I mean, I certainly did when I was using, you know, Bumble and OkCupid. But then, I don't know, some women, they're just like, why, yes, this handsome movie star will just drop everything to come live with my dumpy ass. This is totally legit. Alpha Marigi says, the Real Game Awards was posted on the Side Scrollers channel. Pony Throat says, every day more angry video game nerd videos turn older than the games they were talking about at the time they came out. Yes. I mean, I do still occasionally watch the AVGN, but, you know, he's, like, I don't know, he's not as good as he used to be, and that's understandable. I mean, he's like a 40-something married father now, and, you know, you don't want, you know, perhaps, you don't want to be screaming about, like, taking dumps on things and, like, using ridiculous amounts of profanity when your children are in the next room. He's also going bald, which, you know, doesn't really help with that image much. Referring to the French thing, Ponythroat says, I have strong feelings that 800,000 euros came from a divorce settlement for some reason. Yeah, probably. Now, granted, this scam was apparently AI Brad Pitt. They use, like, deep fakes to make his face. So I guess it's slightly more believable. But still, you should have... I know this isn't a thing that a lot of women are capable of doing, but sometimes you really got to take a look at yourself in the mirror and realize Brad Pitt probably doesn't want to have sex with me. Ponythroat says, AVGN going bald fits the character, to be honest. Well, I mean, in the sense that he's like a hunched-over chud who spends all his time yelling at old video games. Alpha Marigi says, Mike Matei was his ghostwriter. He no longer works with people who cares about games. Losing Mike, Bootsy, and Kyle hurt his channel. I agree. So yeah, that does it for my prepared remarks. You can say your last pieces now about the angry video game nerd, or French women being duped into giving up millions of euros, or you know, whatever you will. Okay. Ponethor says, that makes it sound like this person's even dumber, falling for AI images of 14-fingered Brad Pitt. Well, I'm going to assume they just kind of showed him from the shoulders up. Actually, while I'm doing this, why don't I look up the, yeah, let me look up this story more specifically. Okay, let's see. Okay, this primetime program with 2 M's and an E, of course. She attracted national attention. Interior designer Anne, 53, was duped into thinking she was in a relationship with Brad Pitt for a year and a half. I'm not crazy, I'm not a moron. I admit that I was fooled, and I came forward. A representative for Mr. Pitt told Entertainment Weekly it was awful that scammers take advantage of fans' connections with celebrities, do not respond to unsolicited outreach, especially from actors who have no social media presence. Okay, basically she lost her life savings and she tried to commit suicide since the scam came to light. Netflix France put out a post advertising 4 films with the actual Brad Pitt, and Toulouse Football Club said, "Hi, Anne. Brad told us he would be at the stadium. What about you?" They have since apologized. Okay, so here's what happened. She downloaded Instagram in 2023 when she was still married to a wealthy entrepreneur. She was immediately contacted by somebody who said they were Pitt's mother, Jane Etta, who told Anne her son needed a woman just like her. Being immediately contacted by a famous movie star's mother saying, my son wants to get up in that ass. Yeah, seems legit. Oh, by the way, Alpha Riga says, imagine if you met a Greek person who didn't know who Zeus was. Yeah, I don't see that being likely. Okay, let's see. So basically, somebody purporting to be Brad Pitt got in touch the next day, which set off alarm bells for this woman. But as somebody who isn't used to social media, I don't know what was happening to me. At one point, fake Brad Pitt said he tried to send her luxury gifts, but he was unable to do so. He couldn't pay the customs since his bank accounts were frozen due to his divorce proceedings with Angelina Jolie. And transferred 9,000 euros to the scammers. Every time I doubted him, he dissipated my doubts. Okay, okay, the fake Brad Pitt told Anne he needed cash to pay for kidney cancer treatment. I looked up his cancer on the internet, but I couldn't find it. I thought that he took those selfies just for my eyes only. Meanwhile, Anne and her husband divorced. She was awarded 775,000 euros, all of which went to the scammers. Anne's daughter tried to get her mother to see Reason for over a year. Her mother was too excited. The story gets better. She began to be suspicious when she saw gossip magazines showing the real Brad Pitt with his new girlfriend, Inez de Ramon, whoever the hell that is. The scammers then sent her a fake news report, which they talked about his relationship with Anne so-and-so, Anne of Cleves, or whatever the hell this woman's name is. Okay, and then finally she realized what the hell was going on. Boy, boomers are being hit by AI like crack hit the black community in the 80s. Ponythought says, called it, married to a wealthy entrepreneur. Indeed. Okay, so that does it for my prepared remarks. Now I'm done. Say your last pieces. Okay, so for Larsen Halleck, this has been Larsen Halleck. All of you have a good day.